Hi, I'm Donald Pettitt, manager of the Canterbury Men's Centre. My job is taking care of guys. We have about 15 or so guys come in every week, a bunch of new guys, and help them find their feet, try to make sense of what's going on in their lives and come up with a plan. Got a lot of lovely people involved. There's 14 counsellors that are now contracted to us. We take care of guys in Coburn, Christchurch, Ashburton, Timaru. Love to grow a bit more. A lot of guys end up standing in front of this door for the first time going, wow, okay, this is it, and they knock. Tenderness. It took me about 40 years to realizing that that's something that, though I had good family growing up, I never got a lot of tenderness in a way. And I stepped into it, I grew into it, and I like to think that my work brings a lot of tenderness to men. I like hanging out with my son. I got an 8-year-old. I like reading to him. We have a lot of laughs. I like my daughter, 16-year-old. I like the banter we have. She could be a guy, really, even though she's beautiful and lovely and feminine. She's got a really good playful side to her and a good skeptical, cynical side that her and I love to share back and forth. I do this with my son all the time, reading Asterix and Obelix. They have all kinds of curse words and that are drawn as this. I go, a ministry of men's affairs. I'd love to see humanity really fruit. I think we're reaching towards something really incredible over the next 30 years or so. I mean, I love reading about things like the singularity and those kind of concepts. We're doing marvelous things. Humanity's on a huge journey right now. I just hope we survive it. I guess a lot of my life is about my work. It's about running the men's centre. It's about building and maintaining relationships and keeping all the wheels on the road. The last 10 years of my life while I've been doing this has been great. It feels like something that'll go on my coffin I can be proud of. I'm playful, creative, responsive. I think I never thought of it this way, but wisdom. I've collected a lot of experience and I've synthesized it and I apply it pretty well. Oh, it was nice. It was nice, a little bit sterile, a little bit mayonnaise, but you know, on reflection, that's what the culture was in Canada, where I grew up in the suburbs in Toronto. But oh, there were nice people. You know, a lot of kicking the ball and playing road hockey. We used to play hockey on the streets with the ice all around and the snow on the heaped up that the snow plows had pushed aside, and very few cars going past despite it being a busy suburb. Now you wouldn't be able to do it. My strengths, I'm a good all-rounder. I'm a B-pluser in a lot of different areas. I can do admin, I can do people work, I can do IT, I can do accounting. I cover a lot of ground. I'm genuinely curious and I synthesize it all and bring it together well. I have this winemaking habit. I can get a bit too passionate about that. I love my fruit wines. I got Fijo, 30 liters of it bubbling on the kitchen table right now, and I am very resilient, and but I do know that if people are angry at me, especially if I've done it not gracefully, then I do feel it deeply. If I you know, generally feel like actually I could have done a better job, then it really does bug me, because I'd like to handle my part of the relationship and do it well. Afraid of? I'm afraid of dying before I get to see a lot of this human journey evolve. I mentioned earlier that I'm really excited for the future. We're at a critical juncture. I'd love to see us travel to Mars. I'd love to see us set up I'd love to see us reach for the stars. I'm a real optimist, believing we can accomplish this. I think we're about to accomplish incredible things. I'm a social worker. It's something I've been doing since I graduated 2000, but I've really stepped into it myself. I feel like I'm a real leader as a social worker now. I've got 3 or 4 students at any one time now. Love being, I would think of myself as a medium practitioner now in terms of experience, but I love teaching the students. I love seeing their learning process. I'd like to be remembered for making the world a better place. 5 years. To me, that'll be the 10-year point for the Men's Center. Have a good celebration, good step back, and look at what we've accomplished. I'm building a house that's almost done after the earthquake. It's been 5 years for that. So in 5 years, I want to be settled in there with my wife and I, really taking what is a beautiful bones and structure and creating something lovely outside that we both enjoy. 10-year goal, retirement. I'd like to actually be doing retirement. I don't know what I'd do, though. I bet I'm going to stay involved and do stuff. I like being involved with people. It'd just be nice to take a bit of pressure off, really, not to work so hard. Me, I'd love to go in my sleep now. My granddad did that. Nice guy. He deserved a nice, quiet death. I'm committed to... I'm certainly committed to my wife. She's beautiful. I'm committed to my kids. I'm committed to my work and in improving the world. I love doing what I do for men. Oh, I love just taking care of guys. You know, I really like the one-on-one work with guys. I find myself, I'm feeling tearful now, actually. But I love being just taking care of a young guy, especially a 22-year-old or 28-year-old, or somebody who's really coming in and they're really getting help, and it's for the first time. I'm just moved by that. Health. And having something in my life I'm passionate about that I'm paid to do, cared for. I have a beautiful family. I love the culture I'm in. I love being at this part in history. Once again, I really believe, I'm a true believer of that we are at the cusp of major significant changes. And I love being at this really dynamic time. Right away I go to my family. You're on the right path. You're finally getting there. I took you know, as a younger man, I went in and did what I was good at, which was math and science, and became an engineer. And I was really more curious about people and how it would all work together. And it took me, you know, till I was in my late 30s before I finally went on that track. And it's been a beautiful journey. And so I've done the right thing the last 20 years. It feels like fate almost. It's been just gorgeous. That one about following your passion, I don't think that's true. I think that's a sucker's game, but you know, there is a way to find a balance. I think putting off children longer is a good idea. You know, giving yourself freedom to make that decision. 3 books. Rendezvous with Rama, science fiction. This giant cylinder comes in from outer space, and we link up with it and try to figure out what it is, and then it just takes off across the universe and we never see it again. I liked that. I read a lot of science fiction. Robert Heinlein, I forget the name of it. There was one he went up, we went to Mars or something like that and just settled there. I didn't mention the book earlier, Steven Pinker's Better Angels of Our Nature. That really rocked my world. It's about the decline of violence around the world, especially in Western countries, and he talks about that it's happened, and he demonstrates it so clearly, and then he goes into the whys. And that, for me, gave me a feeling for how rapidly we are changing as a culture, and how much compassion and democratic relationships are evolving, coming out into families, into schools, society. We are so sophisticated, we just don't appreciate quite how well we're doing right now. Nah, there's no great big script. In fact, I'm a big believer we're like a great big watch. It's just kind of, we're a machine, you know. It's all mechanical. It's all just rolling down. Having said that, we have this belief that we can steer some of it, and sort of we do. But even the capacity to steer, we don't have any control over that. It just was given to us. So I've got this very kind of the world's unfolding, I do my little bit, and then I get off the stage. Well, compassion for the many states that people have. You know, I've been a jerk when I've been drunk, and I can still get edges of it. And it's taught me that though we like to think we're really consistent, we're not. Everybody's got inconsistencies, and we have off days and on days. And I mean, drugs or mental health exacerbate that difference. But I'm not as integrated as I think I am. I overlook a lot of the hooks and, you know, the little inconsistencies, and I can't see them. And I think that's what alcohol's taught me, that everybody's got that craziness in them. I'm assuming you're heterosexual there, so that there is a different reality going on. I think in general, and there's a lot you can learn from each other, having compassionate relationships with women, they've been the most moving experiences in my life, despite doing all this work with men. They're a real platform for growth. You don't have to get it right, but I guess I feel like I got better each time. I'm a serial monogamist, and I finally kind of cleared that and cleared a few things out of the system, and settling down, I feel, you know, I got the woman I deserved in the end, and she happens to be a good person. So I'm coming to New Zealand. It was the right thing. Yeah, two dear friends have committed suicide, and both those times they were really distressing for me. I feel distressed now thinking of it. At the same time, they both opened up my world, and with their death as well as their lives, and yes, I guess I just accepted this part of the grief is going to be part of my life, the rest of my life through them, and there'll probably be more. When it'll make a difference. I'm a bit practical about these things. I've taken a stand. I've done some things. Not on a national level so much, though. Well, definitely I've been advocating for men at some levels nationally, but I've taken a stand about men having access to the local health board course, Appetite for Life. I even took a human rights complaint using the Human Rights Commission. It didn't make it in the newspaper or anything, but we turned it around, and there might be 300 or 500 men a year doing this course now that couldn't 5 years ago before I did that. My legacy, definitely the work I'm doing right now. Like, this is really, really cool stuff. I think it's changing people's worlds and making the world a better place. I guess, you know, I keep talking about the huge changes I expect technologically to affect us in the next 20 or 30 years. I hope it means something different in the long run. But in the meantime, it's sure entertaining for me and others that, you know, we're doing this. Definitely guys cut off from their kids, and men being arrested and charged with as a perpetrator when she was the perpetrators, and the readiness for the police to allow that to happen, the lack of pushback when the evidence contradicts that, and yeah, the awareness that that's happening to men on a regular basis. No, they're being sheltered from half of life then. I mentioned my son. He's like a puppy dog for me, really. He can be annoying as hell, but I can tell him that. And we just have a laugh. Yeah, my daughter, actually, when she's talking, we have a great time. My wife, she laughs. She makes me laugh. That stone under my shoe is men's neglect. Now that I'm confronting this, I didn't used to really think about this stuff too much, but now that I'm aware of these guys that haven't been cared for by social services, how it's kind of a rigged game, and I feel angry when I hear people blame men, saying, actually we are pretty bad at taking care of ourselves, and men don't ask for help, and all this. I don't believe any of that anymore, because I've seen why. And I don't think I feel angry, I feel it disrespects men. I'm really excited once again for the human journey, how fast we're going, where we're going. I love technology, I love computers, I love reading science on my tablet, I love the research into human biology and the incredible transformation, once again, technologically that's happening, as well as socially. A habit I'm most proud of, cycling to work. I ride my bicycle, it's 3 or 4 days a week, something like that, to get to work, an hour total each day. Good thing to do. I can't think of anything really. Yeah, they're good people. Mom and Dad, I still talk to them on the phone. Maybe it's interesting. I don't really need them very much. I feel really free to have left them behind in Canada, and I might talk to them once every 2 months or something like that. But they're good people. That's what they want from me. They want me to be happy, and I feel like that. Oh yeah, I'm still learning who I am. There's all kinds of stuff. What have I come across recently? There's reflecting on a past flatmate I was with who was abusive towards me as a woman, and what that meant and how I responded to it. Looking at my daughter and my son growing up, it's me revisiting my youth through their eyes, you know, from my daughter to talk about her boyfriend or men that she talks to, and you know, remembering what I was like as a young man, and looking at it and thinking what would their daughter's father have said about what they were saying, Yeah, and watching my son, you know, dealing with conflict and best friends and leaving an old best friend behind, and yeah, it really brings up memories. I find that kids, they do, I've heard this before, they kind of open up your whole past. I'd probably just come back to work. I'm not ready to retire. I like what I do. I fell asleep once while driving. That was a real shake. You know, I was driving along. I must have cruised across the line and somebody honked their horn and woke me up. Yeah, and pulled over. Yeah, that was pretty scary. My friend Gary Allardyce, who committed suicide, I'd hope he'd be fresh and vigorous. He was an interesting, colourful guy. He did have a lot of grief and some pain, but I think he had a lot more to live, a lot more to do. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sometimes, you know, you don't get honest with Nazis and things, you know. But in general, I like, you know, it's a privilege to live in a society where generally I'm accepted for who I am, and I like being loved, and I like being liked, and I can only be loved or liked if people know who I am. Harvey Keitel, I think he's really cool. Beyond that, I don't know. I dislike winter now that I'm older. I used to love winter, but I dislike it now. I find it getting up in the morning cold and being a bit grumpy. Just to notice it a bit more. Oh, summer, yeah. I got something. Flight of the Conchords. I'd love to be in their third series. Those guys make me laugh. I could be somebody, I don't know, I could splash a puddle on them or something as I drove past. I'd love to do something there. Maybe Homer Simpson. Alcohol. Getting this going, the Men's Center, I also did another thing. I helped get a world music choir going in Nelson. It was my first step into real group leadership, and I was brought back there a few years ago because they'd celebrated their 10th or 15th anniversary or something, and it was nice to see it still going, and all these lives have been affected by me just stepping forward and stepping into leadership and taking that chance. I have to admit a real selfish motive. I used to love chess as a kid. I loved games. I loved winning at games. I like applying myself. I like a creative platform. And then when I started doing this work initially, I was just thinking of it as I'm trying to do something. When I think of the real joy I get out of doing a good, you know, something like a good funding application, surprisingly, I get a lot of satisfaction to going, yeah, that really nails it. That really nails what we're trying to do. And it'll motivate the funder, and it's right. And seeing that actually what I'm creating is something beautiful as well. That you know, seeing a man come in here and leave about an hour later, and seeing the transition that happens, I just go, wow. I'm really moved and excited by that. Einstein. Yeah. Einstein. Interesting guy. Bit of a clown. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think people are phenomenally good. I do. Compared to our closest animal kin, you know, we're remarkable. Stupidest. I've got about 10 minutes of probably 10 minutes, but 10 decisions in my life that I made that I regret, that I really regret, or something like that happened to did, and I'm acutely aware of those. It's part of my work when I see men come in here. You know, that shame and that feeling of failure, letting down the world. That's something that it's, in a way, it feeds. You know, it's the dark side of my passion for actually doing good. Oh yeah, I vote. I guess I feel like it's just part of being a citizen. It's like getting your vaccinations or something. No, I've had a pretty good go at it. I'm getting to be pretty old. I had 55th birthday yesterday, so I mean, that's getting a bit old, but I mean, I probably got a good 30 more years left, and hopefully more. I don't have let's say I've got a philosophy in the sense of we don't have any control over it all. We're just who we were made to be, biology and matter all coming together, and society and creating who I am, and I'm just coasting along, doing what I do, who I am, blessings and curses all, and yeah, that's not much of a philosophy to work to though. How do I love myself? I do take time out for myself. I can be selfish. Like yesterday, for my birthday, I just took the day off, and I wanted to be just around doing something, nothing, and not the regular something, nothing I normally do. And this time I just went and sat on the Orbiter bus. Went and took the Orbiter bus and sort of cruised, got off in a few places, went for a little walk, went to my favorite cafe, the Copenhagen Bakery, yum, and you know, went back on the bus. The bus driver was looking at me funny because the last leg was about 2/3 of the journey. He's kind of trying to figure out why I was there, and then we started chatting, and yeah, that was nice to just pamper myself that way. It was good to have somebody else drive me along. Yes and no. I do a pretty good job. I'm pretty active. I work a 4-day week. If I need to get out for a walk, I do that. Put my son, you know, if I'm caring for him, I get him to watch a bit of telly while I take off, and usually somebody's around to watch him. So, yeah, it's a pretty high priority. I could definitely come here. I mean, I've got other friends and other resources I'd go to, obviously. I get a lot of support from people here. Like if I'm feeling a bit blue or something, I'll talk to somebody. I can be really quite open here with people. Obviously, I got to respect employment relationships and people's levels of capacity, but I like to think I have really genuine relationships with people in my building and in my trade and a range of other people. So we've got some really lovely relationships going in my workplace. Well, we've got a checklist, the structure we take them through, where it kind of exposes, you know, their issues right now and some strengths that they can work with, and the plan usually emerges just from it's just two people putting their heads together. Often the man's got something half together and they don't know the other options. They may not know about support services, and we tell them about that. Could be the plan is to go off and find a better plan for the guy. You know, he might go talk to a friend who also knows a bit about what he's dealing with. And, no, not really when I think of it. I'd seen counselors. I had a lot of friends that were counselors and so on, but I thought social work sounded more like me. But I think it was about, I was a hippie on the commune then. I spent about 8 years when I first came to New Zealand living in the Nelson-Motueka Valley area, and I learned a lot about people, and I was curious about people and communities and relationships and the larger network instead of the intimate one-on-ones. I was curious a bit more about how things fit together and how they work and how they don't. And in that context, I learned a lot about, you know, how to set up a system so people fail, or how to set up a system so they succeed. I don't know that we're more of a me culture. I think every culture thinks that about itself, possibly. I think we did lose a lot of social capital when we moved from something in the 50s where you had a workplace that you spent 30 years at, and you had a fellowship as a guy, especially. Well, women would have their fellowships, but guys had their places, the Lions Club or being part of some community service organization. And I get the impression those used to be pretty big things back when, you know, before government and all the taxes took care of a lot more things. You know, the firefighter clubs and the rugby clubs are still big, but people used to be, guys used to be a lot more connected for lengthy periods, and they knew each other their whole lives in smaller communities. And with the loss of that, as urban centers got bigger and people got more mobile with workplaces, I think in particular men you know, because our major connection point is often generally through work now, and those places are it's like running on a scree slope. The commitment is, in most places, not for a lengthy period. That's really undermined to the well-being of men. That's right, they do give up. That transition does happen, especially when kids come along, but even just getting into a relationship, generally guys. And I think the dark side of that is a lot of men are pushed to do that by their partners, or she discourages and her friends continue to be friends, and he generally is discouraged from having his friends anymore because something's not right about them. And the guy acquiesces. Oh, I'd love to see him in a place where he's tested, he has a chance to grow and thrive. I'd love to see him in a place where his sexuality is celebrated, and he also shows restraint and compassion for people he's involved with. And that he doesn't have to go through, I think it's important to experience loneliness, but he doesn't have to go through long periods of it. I've spent, and I see a lot of it, I see a lot of loneliness here, and I've spent a lot of my life lonely. And I'd like that, his capacity for friendships and the society around him allow him to have friendships to the point where he feels fulfilled.